In a world where technology is part of our everyday lives, even the darkest crimes can leave behind digital evidence. This is the story of Stephen McDaniel, a 25-year-old man from Georgia who was found guilty through his internal search history after committing a horrific crime on June 26, 2011. Is evil born or nurtured? Can the face of a psycho killer hide behind the cover of an ordinary person? Join us as we explore the mind of a psycho killer. Stephen's descent into darkness began with his fascination for disturbing online content like pornography. However, this interest gradually transformed into something far more sinister. It led him to thoroughly plan and execute a shocking act, inspired by what he had seen on his computer screen. His unsuspecting victim was none other than his next-door neighbor, 24-year-old Lauren Giddings. Lauren, a popular young woman, appeared to have a perfect life. However, she felt uneasy around Stephen and declined his date offer. She had told her friends about her discomfort and suspicions of someone entering her apartment. She felt unsafe alone, especially at night, but never took action to address these concerns. Her instinct was right, as Stephen used the stolen key to enter her apartment multiple times, secretly recording her activities. One night, he attacked her while she was asleep, strangling her for about 15 minutes. Despite her resistance, she was overpowered and died from lack of oxygen. He then dismembered her body in the bathtub using a hacksaw and disposed of the pieces in separate trash cans around the campus. 3 days later, her concerned friends entered her apartment and police also discovered some of her body parts in a trash can near her place, leading them to switch to a murder investigation. Interviews were conducted, including one with Stephen, whose response appears to be authentic, yet it's likely a facade. He exhibited a mixture of fear and shock upon the discovery of her parts, while outwardly expressing sorrow for the loss of his neighbor.
We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
Then Stephen faced a police interview in which he appeared nervous and stressful. Two noteworthy moments arose: his claim of being a pure virgin and the detective's discovery of self-inflicted scratch marks on his body. As the prime suspect, Stephen reluctantly allowed a search of his apartment. Investigators found an assortment of weapons, stockpiled supplies, and a mask made from women's underwear. However, the most significant finding was a pack of condoms, contradicting Stephen's pure virginity claim. When confronted, he confessed to stealing them from another apartment. This admission led to his arrest and subsequent interrogation, commencing at 11 p.m.
Okay. Was you friends with him?
Yes.
Close friends?
We were good.
I mean, y'all were friends, right? Both of y'all are law students. You're studying to be an attorney, right?
Yes.
What kind of law do you want to go into? Criminal law?
Yes.
Civil? Is that what you want to do for a living?
The investigator questioned Stephen, who admitted to knowing Lauren Giddings and considered her a close friend. With a stern tone, the detective urged him to focus and emphasize the importance of their discussion. As the conversation progressed, the detective intensified the line of questioning, hoping to uncover hidden information. He affirmed their close bond but remained avoiding under the detective's pressure. When asked about Lauren's whereabouts, he claimed ignorance. The detective scrutinized him by inquiring about specific details regarding her and the peculiar mask found in his apartment with the underwears.
Earlier today, me and you sat here and talked normal. What's going on with you now? Why are you acting like this? I need to know. Why all of a sudden you're acting like this? Okay. Earlier today, we sat here and talked. Now you're acting like you don't know what's going on.
The determined investigator pressed Stephen for answers, but his responses remained evasive and uncertain. Despite the investigator's efforts to break through his defensive shell, he claimed ignorance and denied any knowledge of the horrifying events that happened. Frustration consumed the investigator as they exposed the paradox of Stephen, who once spoke confidently about his missing daughter, now pretending to know nothing. Calling out this ironic shift, the investigator confronted him with the contradictions between his past and present words. Yet Stephen stubbornly stuck to his denial, repeatedly uttering those dreaded words, "I don't know." With each evasive response, the investigator's patience began to crumble, leaving a haunting question. How many times would he dodge the hidden truth?
About his guns. When was the last time you shot those guns? You've never shot a gun? Have you ever shot any gun in your whole life? Never. So you bought 3 guns that you've never shot. Why? For what? For what? I'm asking for what? Why do you want to have them? What did they give you? I mean, tell me why it's important to you to have 3 guns.
The second detective's aggressive behavior shattered any hopes of connection. The discussion shifted to Stephen's guns, and he confessed to never having fired one. Surprisingly, he admitted to buying 3 guns he had never used. Communication intensified as the detective made it clear to Stephen that he could only mention conversations with Lauren about news topics. The investigator questioned his presence in Lauren's apartment, and he hesitated in recalling the number of visits. This raised suspicion as it contrasted with typical human memory. The investigator emphasized the gravity of the situation, with an innocent young woman now missing. Detective 2 engages the suspect, using intense eye contact to break his resistance and extract vital information. It's a psychological battle of wills that can last a very long time.
You both know it's no different than when you was a little kid, right? And you reached in that cookie jar and you got caught after your mama told you not to get that cookie. Did you get a cookie? No. And whenever you tell a lie, you feel bad about it right then. One, with every lie, there's a chance you're gonna get caught.
In the intense interrogation room, the investigator skillfully uncovered the web of deception woven by Stephen. As suspicions grew, the investigator noticed an unusual scent of cleaning chemicals on Stephen, raising questions about his meticulous apartment maintenance. He denied this accusation, but was suspected of hiding something. They discovered his neglectful attitude towards cleaning, adding to suspicions. They further suggested that he had observed the victim closely, raising questions about attraction and his use of the internet for sex. He struggled to comprehend, stumbling over his words. The investigator highlighted the inconsistency between his online behavior and denial of interest in the victim. Finally, they revealed the discovery of blood in Stephen's apartment, shattering his denial.
As soon as you tell him, I wanted to be here with you to go through that process because I know you're not a monster, man. I know you're not a bad guy.
The investigator, armed with knowledge from popular crime shows like CSI, confidently challenged Stephen's attempt to conceal the truth. With a knowing smile, the detective adopted the strategy of having the evidence against them. He confronted Stephen about the presence of blood in his bathroom, leaving little room for denial. Sensing that a confrontational approach may not yield the desired results, the detective shifted gears, adopting a sympathetic and understanding tone. It was an uphill battle for the detective, attempting to build trust after a direct confrontation. The detective examined further, pointing out that Stephen lacked substantial support from his family. He was hoping that Stephen would deny the claim. However, a surprising twist happens, and Stephen countered the detective's assumption, claiming that he did. Without getting frustrated by the unexpected turn of events, the detective swiftly adapted his strategy. But Stephen remained resistant, shutting down the offered sympathy and the reasoning behind the alleged crime.
Anyone, Stephen?
No.
Never heard anyone.
No.
I've heard people, Stephen. I've made mistakes in my life. It's not even normal to say you've never hurt anybody. Sometimes people get mad. They say things they don't mean to say. It hurts. You never kicked a dog or a cat?
The conversation reached the critical juncture, with the detective's skillful managing would either lead to a breakthrough or leave Stephen fixed in his silence. They persisted in their chase of the truth despite his denials. His defense wavered as the abnormality of never having hurt anyone was highlighted. During questioning, Stephen remained calm and offered minimal responses, contrasting with how others described him. Despite strongly denying involvement, he surprisingly admitted that he would tell the truth if he had harmed the girl. Inconsistencies arose when discussing laundry habits and evidence, including a hair strand found at the crime scene. But being a law student, he was very aware of the strategy the investigator applied to having DNA in the victim's apartment. As we know, he visited her apartment just 3 days after she was killed. The investigator skillfully used Stephen's fallen hair as tangible evidence of his involvement in moving the lifeless body, persistently urging him to confront the haunting reality. As he fought with confusion or denial, the weight of his actions became visible in his face. Stephen felt remorse, but struggled to explain or control his actions. The investigator pushed for answers, acknowledging the internal struggle within his mind. He knew that they had discovered his connection to the crime. The conversation then shifted his thoughts about sex, with the investigator accusing him of lying and going deeper into his desires and interactions with women. He persisted in claiming innocence, but the investigator remained convinced of his guilt.
I know earlier today you told me you stayed home all weekend, right? In your apartment.
Yes.
Did anybody see you? Did you talk to anybody over the weekend? Were you on your computer all weekend? Is there anything I can look at that I can say he couldn't be involved because he was on the computer?
The detective in charge stops trying to get the suspect to confess and instead starts treating the suspect with disrespect and humiliation. While there might be a strategic reason behind this approach, it's more likely due to the detective's frustration and strong belief that he's guilty. During the last part of the interrogation, the police questioned him about his activities and interactions over the weekend, but he claimed to have stayed home all weekend with no witnesses or social interactions. The police accused him of the crime, stating that they knew he killed the victim and disposed of her body in a trash can. They emphasized that this information was known by the news media, his family, and others. The interview ended with the police labeling him as crazy and informing him that nobody supported him. Even at the end, he didn't utter a single word about being a murderer. But despite the question marks surrounding his behavior, the evidence against him was undeniably convincing. On his flash drive, a disturbing collection of hundreds of pictures of Lauren were discovered, along with video recordings captured inside her apartment. These digital findings painted a haunting picture of Stephen's obsession. Confronted with the weight of the evidence, he made a fateful decision. To avoid the possibility of the death penalty, he opted for a plea deal, resulting in a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Presently, he resides in the confines of the high-security Hancock State Prison in Sparta, Georgia. The fact that Stephen chopped up his neighbor's body makes me feel horrified, but not as shocked as when I found out about the daughter who stabbed her own mother 200 times. Click that video right here.